welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Hounds of the Hound of the Baskervilles. So this came out in 1959. So it's about an hour and a half long. So its main stars in this case, it is Sherlock Holmes is played by Peter Cushing, and André Morell plays Dr. Watson. So these are our main crime-fighting people. Then you have Christopher Lee, who will be showing up in another video playing Sherlock Holmes himself, is playing Sir Henry, who is the attempted murder victim. And so those, and then Francis de Wolff plays Dr. Mortimer, who's a main character in here, as is Miles Mullison, who plays the bishop, and Ewen Solon, who plays Stapleton. So, and then you have John Le Monsieur, I probably mispronounced, and Helen Gross, who are played Mr. and Mrs. Barrymore, who work for the family of the Baskervilles. So those are our main cast of characters here. So the film starts out with, obviously in the past, where you have a lord throwing one of his servants out the window into what looks like a moat, and then threatening him by a fire because apparently he wants something to do with this man's daughter, who he has kidnapped and locked up in a room upstairs. He goes up there, the girl's escaped. He comes down, he gathers his horse and his hounds and goes chasing after her, ends up in the ruins of this abbey, and then they both end up dead. Apparently he's been stabbed with a dagger. And there's some sort of hound involved. Then it jumps to the present, at least for the film, where you have Dr. Mortimer, who's reading a newspaper article explaining this legend where to Holmes and Watson. Holmes gets irritated with him, tells him it's like, your point, why are you here? Why on earth are you reading this to me? And then he tries to read another newspaper article about the death of Sir Charles, the most recent Baskerville, who was found without a mark on him. Irritates Holmes again because he's reading a newspaper article rather than telling his own views. So Holmes yells at him, and basically this man gets very, very irritated and tells it as he knows it, how he was found at the ruins, supposedly attacked, but there was not a mark on. They were totally attacked, and some sort of connection to basically in the same place where his ancestor, Sir Hugo, was also found. So, and Mortimer is very much obsessed with this legend. So it's like, okay, who's the heir? Here is Sir Henry, who's coming in from Johannesburg, South Africa, recently. Now they talk to Sir Henry, who's very, very arrogant, does not believe any of this. He's very much a posh gentleman and a British gentleman, so very, very arrogant. And he only agrees to allow Watson to go with him to the manor when he's nearly bit by a tarantula. So they go off because Sherlock Holmes has things to do, apparently. The next scene is they're on an open wagon dropping off Mortimer, who is then told by the driver that he should be careful walking across the moor because there's a loose convict wandering around, a murderer who's escaped from the nearby prison. So, and again, Mortimer is like, don't worry about me, I can take care of myself, kind of thing, and goes sauntering off across the moor. They go back. Next scene is they're in the house. Barrymore is explaining to Sir Henry about his family. There's a lot of smoking and talking going on. Move on. You eventually, Watson goes into town to send a telegram to Holmes. On his way back, he runs into Stapleton, who mistakes him for Sir Henry. It's like, no, I'm Watson. I'm staying at Baskerville Hall. He talks to him. He's a gentleman farmer and tells him how to get back because he's lost, because that's what Watson asks. He walks by a young lady, very Spanish-looking young lady, and she thinks he's Sir Henry. She won't have anything to do with him. She tells him to go away. Then when she realizes he's not, she runs off. He chases her. He's getting lost. He falls and nearly is sucked into a swamp, basically a bog. And he's rescued by what turns out to be Stapleton and his daughter. And then they go back by carriage to the house. Watson goes in the house, and Sir Henry shows up on his horse, very much the country gentleman, flirts with the young lady who originally tries to tell him to go away. He does not listen. And then the father comes out and introduces himself, and then they drive off. There's a few other things that go on. You get introduced to the bishop, who's apparently very obsessed with bugs and launching things upon the moor. You find out that the Barrymore, well, getting ahead of myself. The next thing that happens is Watson finds that Holmes is hanging about. Then they think they hear screams and find what looks to be Sir Henry dead on the ground near this abbey. They go back to the house. Sir Henry had a scare, and Mortimer was supposed to stay with him because it turns out he has the same heart disease that his uncle had, which apparently runs in the family. They get back. He's still alive, and Dr. Mortimer is nowhere to be seen. So, and then they find out that the gentleman who Holmes knew and had conversations with the murderer, and it's revealed that he was Barrymore's brother-in-law, and they were feeding him, and Miss Barrymore has given her little brother Sir Henry's clothes, because Sir Henry had given her some of the clothes that he had come to England with from Johannesburg to put in the charity bin at the church. So she ended up giving them to her brother. So apparently he was mistaken for Sir Henry. And then they go, and Holmes goes and sees the bishop and talks about spiders and a missing spider. Then they go and have an argument with Mortimer, who had gotten in a fight with Sir Henry because he keeps bringing up the stupid curse of the Hound of the Baskervilles. Again, Sir Mortimer is very, very arrogant, very, very obsessed with this, and just kind of seems very, very nasty. Holmes talks to him about a tin mine, gets him and Stapleton to take him to the tin mine. He's nearly killed, finds his way out, gets himself injured, instigates a fight with Sir Henry, so he will go to the Stapletons for dinner alone. He is not actually all that injured. They go out to the moor because it is the time for the Sir Henry to die, apparently. And they end up going to the abbey, and there is this and Sir Henry is with Cecile, which is Stapleton's daughter, and she'd already talked about how she hated England, and she was flirting with him, and they were flirting, and then they get to the abbey, and she kind of goes crazy, and it's like, this is where your uncle died because he wanted a piece of me, but I'm a Baskerville too, and now you're going to die. And the father releases the dog, and there's a big fight, and Holmes and Watson kill said dog, and the dog has already killed Stapleton. Cecile runs off, ends up drowning in the bog because it's night and foggy. They get Sir Henry back home, and it ends with Sir Henry sending, because there was a issue with a missing portrait on the wall which showed webbed fingers, which apparently is how they identified Stapleton as the child of the Sir Henry's, or Sir Charles's younger brother, who had supposedly died childless. So, and that's how they identify him. And basically, so Sir Henry sends the painting to him along with, I can't remember what else, as a memento of the case. So, that is the film of the story of the Baskervilles. So, here are my issues with this. For one thing, Mortimer's not arrogant. He's also not obsessed with the curse of the Hound of the Baskervilles. He's not obsessed. Sir Charles was. Second thing is, Sir Charles, there is no Abbey in the book. Sir Charles is killed walking along a track of yew trees next to the moor. He will not go anywhere near the moor because Sir Charles highly believes in this curse. That night, however, he did stand at the gate that had access to the moor for some time, as if waiting for someone, and he died without a mark on him. It was believed that he did die of a heart attack. He did have a heart disease. His nephew does not. Moving on. Sir Henry is not arrogant either. He's not coming from St. Johannesburg either. He's a farmer in Canada. So he's young, impressionable, uneased about this because why in London he gets a letter basically telling him to stay away. That's why he agrees to have Watson go with him. His boots do disappear, but he's more concerned about it because one of them was brand new, because there's a difference in weather between Canada and Dartmoor. So they go, again, Holmes does not go with them. Watson does. And Barrymores are not, Mortimer, who's actually very fond of Sir Henry, sorry, drives them because the only servants in the house are Mr. and Mrs. Barrymore, and they intend to leave because they loved Sir Charles and basically want to retire. Yes, there is her brother is out on the moor. Yes, he's an escaped criminal. Yes, he is in fact killed on the moor. Possibly, I can't remember whether or not he was wearing Sir Henry's clothes. I think he was wearing his boots, not his entire clothes. And yeah, they do think by this time Watson has discovered that Holmes has been hiding about in some sort of cave system. Or no, he's hiding about in the old old homes of the people who used to live on the moor. So, and was getting supplies by the postman's son. So that's how he was getting supplies. The other big thing is Stapleton is a whole heck of a lot younger, and the woman with him is posing as his sister, but is in fact his wife. So no daughter. She also refused to have anything to do with Sir Henry, or with Sir Charles. She does end up flirting with Sir Henry. Her husband does try to get her to seduce Sir Charles, but she will not. And he beats the crap out of her for it. What does end up happening is the bishop is not a bishop. It's not Bishop Franklin. He's a lawyer. He's a solicitor who likes litigation a lot. And he's disowned his daughter. And it's his daughter that Stapleton, who is the naturalist, not the farmer, seduces. He seduces her and gets her to send a note to her Henry, because she can't divorce her current husband. They have nothing to do with each other, but again, it's the Victorian era, so divorce is pretty much impossible. and it also requires a lot of money. So that whole thing is cut out. That's why Sir Charles was standing at the gates, because he got a notice from her asking for help, and they'd had some communication. But Stapleton had distracted her and told her not to go. So what actually happens is, yes, they find out all about the Barrymore, and he's killed. And they discover this. But then they tell Sir Henry that they're going back to London. And then they follow him. And he comes out, and it's because of the fog that they don't see the dog that goes after him. And they're able to, again, kill the dog. Again, there is no Abbey here. It's just the moor. There is no Hattie. There is no knife. There is no seduction. They do find Mrs. Stapleton locked in a room in their house. And yeah, she's quite happy to tell on her husband, but he ended up getting lost. There is a tin mine in the story, but it's just where he keeps the dog and where he ends up dying trying to get to. He'd actually taken the dog out of there before the evening and put him in the shed near his house, waiting for the right time to send it off to kill Sir Henry. And he puts a type of glow-in-the-dark paint on the dog to make it terrifying. That's what's killed Sir Charles. He was an old man who had a bad heart, who was scared to death by a giant dog chasing after him in the dark that glowed. And he was obsessed with this legend of the Hound of the Baskervilles. So, also, Dr. Mortimer is not obsessed with this. He's a married man who kind of is almost like a fatherly figure to Sir Henry. He's a very nice guy. There is no painting either. So they kill the dog, and Stapleton is killed in the bog because he can't see it. And his now widow is quite happy about that. She's happy to be done with him. So that's kind of the issues. I do not understand the need to add this Abbey. It doesn't make financial sense when making the film. A bunch of trees is simple enough, and the moor. And you don't need to add... I don't know why on earth they did the first scene either, because the legend is just a way that Stapleton uses to, one, scare Sir Charles to death. And yes, that's the other thing. Stapleton, again, still being younger. He is the younger son of Sir Charles's younger brother, who did go to South America and die. His wife was Costa Rican, so not Spanish. And they came over later, and he was a schoolmaster for a while. He talked about being a schoolmaster in the book. And then he eventually found out that he was in line for this and moved in, and then tried to get his wife to seduce Sir Charles. And Sir Henry didn't know that he was the heir. He was the son of the middle brother. He had nothing to do with Dartmoor. So I think his family when his parents died, he went to friends in Canada. So yeah, he had nothing to do with his uncle until he found out he was the heir to Dartmoor. So, and he is kind of fragile. He's not arrogant. He's not a country gentleman at all. It's a very different character. It's the same with Mortimer. So a lot of the characters, with the exception of Holmes and Watson's, are just completely morphed out of recognition, except for maybe Franklin being slightly nosy. But again, he's not the one who has anything to do with bugs, and there's no spider involved either. So, and there's no webbed fingers. That's not part of this either. There's a lot of stuff they add and change around here. I wouldn't say it's in name only, but it's close. I mean, they got the basics. Sherlock Holmes and Watson go to a house called Baskerville, where there's a legend of a gentleman who... Oh, and then there's that other thing. The whole legend has more to do with the fact that Sir Hugo proposed to one of his neighbors. Her father said no. He goes and kidnaps her, and she escapes, and he goes after her alone, I believe on foot, maybe on his horse. And they're just both found dead, and there's no explanation. And I can't remember what the dog part. There must have been dog footprints or something, large animal footprints around them, and they're both pretty much found dead. So there's no party, there's no threatening of the servant or anything. It's he kidnapped a girl, locked her up, found her escaped, went after him, and then both of them were found dead on the moor. So, again, no Abby mentioned. So, and this is not believed by Sir Mortimer. It's certainly not believed by Watson or Sir Henry. Nobody believes this, but Sir Charles did. And again, they do hear howling. So there is a dog, and the dog is used, but it's covered in paint. In the film, they use a mask, which, is weird to make it more scary. But yeah, like, you could probably just use glow-in-the-dark paint, because that's what they essentially used in the book. But what's interesting about the book is, because Stapleton dies, there's no big reveal. And Watson doesn't find out what really happens until weeks later, after they've dealt with a couple of other cases. Until Sherlock Holmes reveals what the heck was going on. And the only reason they happened to bring it up was because Dr. Mortimer and Sir Charles had just visited, because they were going off to go tour the world or something by ship. Because, of course, Sir Henry's, he was nearly killed by a giant dog in the dark and the fog. And he's terrified. And now very weak and not in a great condition. So apparently going traveling is something they're going to do. And it doesn't mention what the heck's going on with Mortimer's wife. Or his medical practice, for that matter. But yeah, it's an enjoyable film, and if you're looking, particularly since this is middle school and up, you're not going to want children, not to mention they wouldn't be interested. Younger kids, at least most of them, again, your children. But it's a great film to compare to the story, because there's just so many differences that it is barely recognizable as the same story, which, with the exception of like the bare bones of Holmes and Watson and the main characters' names, and this legend of this Hound in Baskerville Hall, an attempted murder. That's pretty much it, because again, it's the wife, not the daughter. She's posing as her sister, a little bit crazy. She does try to tell them to go away, because again, she does not want to be involved in this. The only reason she starts falling for Sir Henry is because she's lonely and she's been beating the crap out of her by her husband. She's pretty much abusing her. So, and he was the one who used someone else to coerce Sir Henry. And it had nothing to do with romance, because again, he was a little old man. He was not interested. So it's an interesting film. I do believe the guy who plays Sherlock Holmes, Peter Cushing, plays him several other times. Along with, I believe, André Morell. I think he plays Watson a couple more times as well. I'm going to bring this up. Apparently he was also in Ben-Hur. But let's see. I think he was in more Sherlock Holmes films. Let's see if he was in there again. Back in the 60s. It actually doesn't look like it. He's not. It must have just been Cushing, who looks very much, I believe he's played Dracula multiple times. At least he had in the past. Let's see. I believe he plays Sherlock Holmes a couple of other times. Let's go back into the past here. Jumping back. back into the 70s. Now, he plays it in 16 episodes of 1968 TV series where he plays Sherlock Holmes. Otherwise, he seems to be in a lot. He's in some Frankenstein films and a couple other things. So he's... No, the one thing I noticed, I believe he was in Dune. I'm going to scroll back up here. I'm not seeing it, but could be wrong. But nonetheless, it's an interesting film. I enjoyed watching it, but I also enjoyed, after I just literally read the book, the differences are glaring. The characters, the personalities is the one that stands out for me. The personalities of all the characters except for Watson and Sherlock Holmes are nothing like the characters in the book at all. They pale no resemblance except for by name. And of course, for some reason, they decide to make... There is a bishop in the book. He just doesn't play much of a part. The neighbors are Stapleton and Franklin's a lawyer and nosy and obsessed with suing people. So, and disowning his daughter because she didn't like his husband. He didn't like her husband, who was apparently a nasty piece of work. So, and he may have been a naturalist himself. So, and she was just desperate for him to go away because she didn't want to be married to him or live with him. And she knew she could be forced to because Victorian England. So that is it for this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I think I'm done with Sherlock Holmes. I think I might actually have a couple. I do have a couple more Sherlock Holmes-like things going on for December, and then I will finish off with Agatha Christie, and then we'll be moving off into 2025, where if you would like to escape with me, join me for a year of fairy tales, starting off with The Snow Queen and Frozen 2. So, I have not seen either one of them, although I believe I'm going to be throwing in some other things along with that. So, I will not be covering The Princess and the Frog because I did that. You can check that out. I will be looking at Cinderella again, though I did cover the live action and the animated, the original animated film previously. The same with Beauty and the Beast. I covered those earlier this year. I covered Cinderella last year. So you can check out those lists. I am covering, however, everybody else. We're going to be doing, I'm doing The Lion King in February to cover my African American History Month, because that's what I got. It's what I can find. There is no princess, well, except for if you consider Nala a princess, even though she's a lion. But then we're going to be covering Merida in March because it's Irish. I'm doing Ariel in April, and then I'm doing a few others. I am covering the rest of them except for the new one, which I have not seen yet, and I'm contemplating whether or not I will see it, and The Last Dragon thing, because I haven't seen that one yet, and I can only fit 2 princesses. Though that may change. I have to double check to see if I've covered Mulan yet. But nonetheless, we are covering princesses next year. So if you want to escape with me, please join me. Check out the rest of my channel. I do have quite a bit of stuff. I am not going to be doing a book series this year in 2025 because it is just too much for me right now. So I'm just going to be doing the 2 videos, and I'll occasionally throw in a Wednesday video when I have stuff to say and curriculums to critique. So like and subscribe, leave a positive comment if you have one, and I will see you next time. Thank you.